The general consensus seems to be that the baked pie tastes massively inferior to its predecessor, but taste is just the tip of the iceberg. McDonald's apple pies definitely don't skimp on the apple. Each pie contains a blend of 6 different kinds of 100% American-grown apples. However, the apples aren't solely responsible for the McDonald's apple pie packing such a flavorful punch. Previously, you could thank a powder made of dehydrated apples. This served a practical purpose, soaking up the liquid to keep the filling thick and together while it baked. Most importantly, it maximized the apple flavor. McDonald's wasn't the only company using it to this effect, with apple powder often popping up in the ingredient lists of candies, baked goods, and sugary staples such as Pop-Tarts. However, it dropped the powder in 2018, which happens to be when a lot of fans believe the pie went downhill, and now instead enhances the flavor with citric acid, ascorbic acid, and apple juice concentrate, as well as beta-carotene, to give the filling that iconic golden brown color. McDonald's caused outrage in 1992 when it announced plans to stop deep frying its iconic pies, instead opting to bake them. While fans still debate the true reason over 30 years later, the legacy of the deep-fried pie lives on, with customers spending the first years after its demise tracking down restaurants that hadn't yet switched to baking. In the years post-baked vs. fried gate, customers scrambled for one last hit of the flaky, searingly hot, deep-fried McDonald's apple pie. According to Los Angeles Magazine, demand was so high that there was a fried apple pie locator map buried deep in online chat rooms at one point in the early 2000s. By 2014, there was still enough interest that one California chef found himself running a small black market fried apple pie business. Having been tipped off at a Chicago food convention, Eric Greenspan bought up a supply of the pies from a third-party company that previously produced them for McDonald's. Greenspan went on to sell them at his own restaurant, Greenspan's Grilled Cheese, where he surreptitiously marketed them on the menu as throwback apple pies, priced at $3 apiece. Sadly, Greenspan's Grilled Cheese is no longer operating as of 2017, but we remain grateful for every extra day Greenspan gave us with the OG pies.
The iconic McDonald's apple pie is getting a makeover.
The 1992 overhaul wasn't the only major change to hit the apple pie. Blind to the concept of not messing with a good thing, McDonald's made a few minor changes in 2016, such as switching to a lettuce top crust, before carrying out another major overhaul in 2018. This time around, the chain slashed the ingredients list to make the pie simpler and healthier, reducing the amount of artificial additives and axing the high fructose corn syrup. At the time, a McDonald's spokesperson said, "Our new freshly baked apple pie recipe is in line with other positive changes we have made. Likewise, our new apple pie is made with fewer ingredients such as sugar, sliced 100% American-grown apples, and a bit of cinnamon to the filling for flavor to give each one that homemade taste our customers love." Healthy or not, fans weren't happy that the pies were changing once again. To many, the biggest disappointments were the new pie's lack of a brown sugar-coated crust, and the fact that the pie tasted too healthy to still count as an indulgent treat. Oddly enough, though, McDonald's has claimed they are implementing positive changes as a justification to transform its apple pie. The reality, however, is that the pie isn't much healthier today than it was pre-2018. Despite multiple outlets reporting at the time that it contains less sugar than its predecessor, the McDonald's apple pie as we know it today contains 14 grams of sugar, 1 gram more than the old pie. The new pie also contains less fiber, with just 1 gram per pie versus 4 grams. It is fractionally better in some regards. For example, it contains 1 gram less saturated fat and 230 calories instead of 250 calories. These changes are so minor that it's hard to really justify the new pie as a truly healthier option. Yes, it uses real sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup, and yes, there's slightly less fat. As dietitian Amanda Lee explained to National Post at the time, the body really cannot tell the difference between the source of the sugar. For instance, when you break down high fructose corn syrup, it ends up being glucose and fructose molecules, which is the same as when you break down invert sugar or apple juice concentrate. So, in other words, don't go thinking of the post-2018 apple pie as a health food. Back in the 1990s, 28-year-old British customer Darren Miles sued McDonald's after biting into a pie and scalding his arm when some of the filling leaked out of the pastry. At the time, Miles stated, "The filling was like napalm, worse than any burn I've had from soldering in my work."
Careful, McDonald's apple pies are always a little hot.
Jesus Christ! God! Do they do that?
I don't know!
While Miles may have been the first to take legal action, he definitely wasn't alone in suffering the physical consequences of a McDonald's apple pie. Delicious though they were, the deep-fried version of the pies were notoriously hot, and not the kind of hot you want from a freshly baked good, but the kind of hot that seared your tongue if you dove into the pie too enthusiastically. Some have theorized that it was the fear of more cases in this vein that inspired McDonald's to switch from deep-fried to baked pies. Seeing as how the UK is yet to follow suit 28 years later, and the incident took place 4 years after McDonald's ditched deep frying in the US, we'd assume that this is just an urban myth. While some international McDonald's locations still boast the OG deep-fried pie, you don't necessarily need to go global to get your traditional fix. You can currently find the OG McDonald's apple pie in a single restaurant in the US. The Downey location, situated in southeast Los Angeles County, is the oldest active McDonald's.
Opened in 1953 by Richard and Maurice McDonald, the original founders of the fast food eatery, and the building is exactly as it was then.
Assumedly, the Downey location gets to keep what the rest of the country craves off the back of its historical status. Other restaurants that clung on to the deep-fried pies have been corrected, as was the case when a handful of Florida stores held out until the early 2010s to make the switch. However, if you're willing to look even further than Downey, you'll also find deep-fried apple pies in Hawaii. Franchise owner Victor Lim previously spoke to Honolulu Magazine about the apple pie's longevity in the Aloha State, explaining that they're just more locally popular than their baked counterparts. He said, "In apple pies alone, not even counting the taro pie and haupia pie, we outsell our counterparts on the mainland. That's the reason we've been allowed to keep our fried apple pies. Our result proves that there's a customer demand here in Hawaii."